Girl, I think you're royalty and you deserve nothing less than my loyalty. You hold me down in return, you get more of me. That's how it feel when you're someone's priority, babe. Now what you gonna do with that? I know you ain't used to that. I'll show you better, babe. I know you're used to it.
All right. Tonight, we're live on Grown Folks Business, and I'm telling you, it's taking everything I can to stay in my seat, to relax, to chill, because I am a ball of fire on this topic here. I'm here, Goddess Sierra, with the lovely Goddess Earlene. What's up, my girl?
Good evening.
I literally all day was willing you here because I know how busy you have been with work. Folks probably calling to see if they had a chance to move in with R. Kelly. Listen, stop calling Earlene about these readers asking if you next. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I want to talk about the topic tonight. It's about really pedophilia in America and what exactly that means, because I don't understand how a few years ago, you know, what R. Kelly did was acceptable when he was allegedly urinating on a I believe it was supposed to have been a 14 or 15-year-old young girl. Now that he's with grown women who apparently are suffering from low self-worth, low self-esteem, or being bought, whatever it is, but they're consenting adults, everyone is outraged. And they want investigations because they don't want what they call cults or sexual behavior on their street. Listen, this is on every street in America. Early?
Mm-hmm. Hey,
you don't
I have no comment. R. Kelly been urinating on people for years. I don't see what's so surprising. I don't understand. R. Kelly is old, ancient. His skin starting to droop a little bit on his face. I mean, how much urine and sperm can he have left in him? I just don't understand why everybody's so upset. If R. Kelly want to lock willing women in his basement, put leather on them and have sex with them, hey. But I know that it's a lot of you out there that want to be locked in R. Kelly's basement.
I am not one of you, ladies. Listen, here's the thing. I was talking with a woman and she said, well, when I was young and I was impressionable, if you added money to that, there's no telling what I would have done. Exactly. There's no telling what you would have done. Now, you know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. R. Kelly couldn't buy what's between my legs. R. Kelly couldn't sniff what's between my legs. R. Kelly couldn't do anything between my legs. But there's certain way. I was turned off from this man in the early 90s when he said, my mind is telling me no, but my body is telling me yes. I thought to myself, well, who he's sleeping with that his mind is telling him no. I was conscious enough back then. Yes, I was conscious enough back then to say this is peculiar. He said, I don't want to hurt nobody, but there's something I must confess. And I remember hearing that in the club and thinking, well, what is he doing? Yes, I was like, to you. That's what he said. And then he said, I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. And I watched people just practically lose their mind in it. But I was actually turned off by it. And because I really couldn't understand why an adult was talking about his mind telling him no and his body telling him yes, and how he didn't want to hurt anyone. A lot of times people say a lot of things that are supposed to be subliminally right out in public. They say it's hidden in plain sight. Now, also today, you know, that 100-year-old Roman Polanski had another woman come forward and say that he molested her. Now, this is the director who had drugged a young 13-year-old girl, had intercourse with her, and then fled where? To the United States, and was allowed to stay here knowing that they wanted his behind in Switzerland. You know what I'm saying? So the conversation tonight is not just about R. Kelly, but it's about pedophilia all over the world, especially when money is involved. Because it seems like when you have money that these things just kind of go away. Now, we got Lawrence Taylor, the NFL guy. He was caught having sex with a 16-year-old. His son, Junior, is a registered sex offender. These things are culturally taught in families. I know that because I've survived it. These things are culturally taught, and women sit around because it happened to them. It happened to their sisters. It happened to their mothers. They sit around. They don't say anything. They attack the other women in the tribe or the village, and they applaud the men. This is a very confusing thing going on it's not even in America. It's in the world. It's a very confusing thing going on. The laws are very confusing, and the laws are definitely set up to protect somebody. So is it our politicians? Is it our politicians? Because you people continue to vote on issues, but you're not looking at one of the biggest issues in America, which you claim Atlanta is the hub for, which is sex trafficking. But the legal age of consent in most states is 16. So if a 16, but then it goes on to tell you that you can have sex with a 13-year-old as long as you are 14 years old. Or you can have sex with a 12-year-old as long as you were 13 years old. But you can't have sex with a 14-year-old if you're 12. That's very confusing. Very, very confusing. So you're telling me that a 12-year-old can consent to sex as long as it's not with a 14-year-old, as long as it's with a 13-year-old. This is very confusing. And in some states, you can have sex, like in Delaware, the legal age of consent is 18. 18. And I'm thinking, oh, that's good. But as I went on to read the laws, it said, but the legal age for teenagers is 16 to 17, that they can engage in sexual intercourse as long as the person is younger than 30. So I'm like, what? These are confusing statutes of criminal code here. So if I'm 16 years old in the state of Delaware, I can have sex with a 29-year-old. But the age of consent is 18. I'm very, very confused. So
because it's so many young girls going around willingly giving themselves to older men.
Willingly given. And the sad part is prostitution is illegal in most states, but that's exactly what these young women are doing. And prostitution is not always for money. But if you don't know your worth and you don't know your value, of course you will prostitute yourself for something, whether it's being in R. Kelly's basement, whether it's dressing up with bows in your hair and little girls' clothes on in his living room, whatever it is you're doing it for something that you feel is valuable. And I don't think that the government is then supposed to jump in with guns blazing. See, they did this with David Koresh. They did this, when they were concerned about what Jim Jones was doing. They've done this whenever there's religion or sex tied to something and people don't understand it. They did it with the polygamists up in Utah. They come in with the guns blazing in the investigations. But how do you get to have a harem of 200 and 300 women and a bunch of children and a bunch of underage sex before someone actually steps in? That's peculiar to me. In most states in Mexico, the legal age of consent is 12. Guess where a lot of your politicians are flying? Guess where a lot of your state officials are flying? Guess where a lot of them are enjoying their vacations? In Mexico, where the legal age of consent is 12. 12. And on top of that, you don't even get in trouble unless there's a complaint. You're talking about dirt poor places where I can come in and have sex with your 12-year-old daughter and just pass the family $50 and all is well. Dominican Republic, where these young boys are being prostituted and people are flying over to engage in sexual impropriety with them. Thailand. I mean, you have family members over there who turn their sons into ladyboys for money. So we live in a world that has confused what consent really even is, in my opinion. You have Marvin Gaye. I love Marvin Gaye. I was devastated during my research when I found out that his adopted son was his biological son with a 16-year-old girl. Yes, people, Marvin Gaye. His wife, who he married after he divorced Berry Gordy's sister, was 17 years old when they started their relationship. And then she had Nona Gaye, his daughter, and then his other child. She began to talk about in the book how he made her have sex with other men. I don't really know what that means unless he stripped you down naked and beat you. But, you know, apparently being psychologically tripped out or psychologically confused by a man turns it into the behavior of I was made to, or I believe as a person who endured sexual abuse for years, I believe that people need to start to take ownership for their behaviors, men and women alike. If you are doing inappropriate things with children, you are a pedophile. You should not be. Listen, Woody Allen, his adopted daughter alleged repeatedly that he molested her as a child. She was, shunned, and all types of things went on in the media, but then he turns around and marries the adopted daughter of his wife. Nasty. Has children with her. You know what I'm saying? Martin Weiss, a talent agent with Nickelodeon and Disney. He's charged with molesting over 30 boys, and he pleaded no contest in 2012. Now, one of those two young boys, Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, you know, unfortunately Corey Haim has passed on, but when he passed, Corey Feldman said, you know, the biggest and most terrible thing that, and I'm paraphrasing, terrible thing that still continues to go on in Hollywood is pedophilia. That was his quote. I remember that because they had a TV show called The Two Coreys, and I said, oh, as soon as I saw that, I said, he'll be canceled, you know. But I hadn't been able to research whether Martin Weiss was one of his, was that those young men may have been his clients, but he talked about Corey being molested over and over again by his agent while his mother pocketed money. So, Early, can you understand what I'm saying? It seems like you can have sex with my child as long as you pay me. You can have sex with my child as long as you make him a star. You can have sex with my child as long as I can take pictures with you and post them on Facebook or Instagram. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, this is like the whole situation with the laws and things. It makes no sense to me. And this is why. Because older men could have sex with and marry. Our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, they would go get little girls and marry them and get them pregnant. And, and this, I'm sorry, excuse my French, but the shit has continued on. Yes. People act like it don't happen anymore. Now you just got to pay for it. And people go, oh, but at the same time, a lot of people, if a person marry that young child or that 16-year-old in the family consent of it, they sign off and say, hey, yeah, they can get married. It's not illegal.
In the United States military, you can have a wife that's 12 years old. It's still on the books of the Uniform Code of Justice. But there was a young man here some years ago in Texas that had a 14-year-old wife. 12, yes, ma'am, 12. It said it's your wife, 12. But listen, most laws only changed in the late 1800s to make it illegal to marry a 12-year-old. Many men had 12 and 13-year-old wives. It was lawful to marry a woman, but I'm using air quotes for that, who basically had her menstruation. Now, here's the thing. The average age of menstruation currently in the United States is 8 years old. So you're going to come, and in the 1800s, you could just come and grab up my daughter the minute she menstruated, and she could start pumping out your children. So this, it's like you said earlier, there's nothing new about this. It's just being concealed in certain ways now. You know what I'm saying? You got these close in age exemptions that are in a lot of states, Oklahoma, as long as you're 14 and you're not having sex with a 20-year-old, it's okay. But if you're having sex at 14 with an 18-year-old, it's okay. If you're having sex with a 20-year-old and you're 14, it's not okay. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very confusing. So what if I'm having sex at 14 with my 17-year-old boyfriend and then he turns 18? With my 18-year-old boyfriend and then he turns 19. He's not supposed to touch me anymore, but then it also has the married exemption. So if you end up marrying a 14-year-old, which a lot of states allow parents to sign their daughters away at an early age and lawfully and legally marry, then what are you talking about? So while we're hollering and screaming about R. Kelly, we aren't saying anything about these laws. Women and young boys are being trafficked all over, the continental U.S. and all over the world, truthfully. And so we're not saying anything about that. How do you, at Jerry Sandusky, get to rape all of these young men? And everyone wanted to kill and string up, the coach who didn't molest anybody. He didn't tell. He actually did tell. He told the people that he thought was in charge, and they turned a blind eye. And so you want, Joe Paterno's statue taken down. He didn't rape anybody. And on top of that, Jerry Sandusky goes to jail. And then a few months ago, his son is having sex, a pedophile, his adopted son. This stuff is cultural. They adopt these children. They bring these children into foster care. It's all these systems set up in the U.S. to abuse and sexually abuse young people. All of these systems set up from foster care to adoption on down. And it's really, really disgusting. When I found out that the average age of consent in Mexico was 12, I saw why a lot of people I know are taking vacations there. When you're seeing fathers and sons who are sexual offenders, sexual predators, a lot of this stuff is taught. It's hidden within families. A woman on Facebook, she was talking about how R. Kelly was sexually abused as a child and blah, blah, blah. So was I. I don't run around molesting children. When you are an adult, you have a choice. You know the difference between right and wrong. I know what havoc that wreaked in my life. I definitely don't want to put it in somebody else's life. It was terrible for years. I struggled with my self-esteem, my self-worth, so many things. But here's the thing. Earlene, did you see that young woman's father with his press I'm sorry, I barely can hold it together, with his press conference? Did you happen to see the father of the young woman who put out her video saying that she was okay, but you could see someone coaching her and waving their hand when they didn't want her to answer something? You could see the shadow.
No, I ain't see it. But if you say it, I have to look it up while her father and mother came out. Her mother had on dark shades. Her father, I thought he was the attorney for the family because he had on a suit. He had an earpiece in his ear like he was the CIA, and he was talking all about how he was spelling names, and it seemed like he was more loving the attention than concerning himself with his daughter. He was hushing the media. When they tried to ask him questions, he wasn't answering the questions. He was saying, it's not about that. That'll be revealed next week. This is about this, that, and the other. Then the young lady puts out a video, his daughter, and she says, I don't want to talk to my family because they're doing the most. So now Atlanta, Georgia is saying that they want him investigated. And R. Kelly was quoted as saying they got a lot of nerve trying to interfere in his business negotiations, which, they're trying to cancel his concert that's coming up in Atlanta. And people are already talking about protesting it and this, that, and the other. Where were these same people
when he was married to a child? Where were these same people when he was peeing on children? Now that he's with adult consenting women, everybody is outraged, and I'm really confused about that. I would love to get on here and say, this is a filthy, filthy man. I don't care what this man is. If he's within his legal rights, mind your business. If the woman says she walked out of his house of her own free will, nobody's being held captive. You're calling things that you're not invited to. All of a sudden it gets the term cult. Listen, in America, you can do what you want to do. You can kill black men in the street. You can hang people in cells. You can swing people from trees. You do the most in America, but somebody having sex of their own free will, you need the authorities. That is very, very alarming. Very alarming. Because we have things confused in America. And our laws are confusing in America. We don't change them. We just kind of move a couple of words around and make amendments to things, and then it's okay. So I'm not even certain, when I've gone back and looked at all the things that I saw today with celebrities, James Franco and his alleged inappropriate behavior with a 17-year-old. But here's the thing. If the legal age of consent is 16, who's to say that he's being inappropriate? We say because he's however old, in his 30s, that he has no business talking to a 17-year-old. But you all had no problem whatsoever with Doug Hutchinson, with that little 16-year-old girl, Courtney Stodden, the actor from the Green Mile. Y'all had no problem with watching them on a reality show. He was running around, but she was of legal age of consent, but she was a child and he was a grown man. And even though people talked about how disgusting it was, Earlene, they watched the show. They watched the show. They loved the drama and the foolishness of it. And her mother was 100% supportive of it because she was trying to make her daughter a celebrity. What better way to make her daughter a celebrity than to offer up her yoni to a D-list actor? I mean, goals. Hashtag goals. Michael Jackson. We want to talk about it. Yes, they took this man through the ringer. I don't know whether or not he touched children. I know the people that accused him committed suicide. You got all that money and then you hung yourself. That's weird. But that's his heart. Why are you, a grown man, allowing children to sleep over at your house? See, if you are keeping yourself in the proper status, nobody can make these accusations against you. Nobody can make. I don't like my own kids spending the night at my house, and they mine. You understand what I'm saying? I'm waiting on the day that they can get out, so I can't see myself. My daughter's always asking for a sleepover. No, I don't want anyone else's underage child in my house because I know what happens. See, there was a man who claimed that a little girl at his daughter's sleepover came and got on top of him when he was sleeping, and he impregnated this little girl. But he quickly said that he was on Valium or something, and this little girl came. Now, if you had seen the picture of this man, you call him all types of satanic liars. You know what I'm saying? But he goes on to say that this little girl, got on top of him sexually, and he actually thought it was his wife. And so you hear about these tragic things, all of these teachers sleeping with children. How you a grown woman and you attracted to a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old? What in the world is going on? See, this is deeper than just sickness, as much as it is emotional immaturity, energetic stagnation, and personal disgust. I would have to be in a really low place in my life to climb up on a 14-year-old to get off. And a lot of these women are married. It kind of says a lot about your marriage if you got to climb on top of a 14-year-old, a 13-year-old to reach gratification. So we not only have our celebrities engaging in all types of inappropriate sex acts and having the money to get out of it, not just even sex, murder, all types of things. Where are we putting people in this country who have money? Where are we putting these people who have money that we don't stand for the ones that can't stand for themselves? Sexuality is still a hot topic. I talk about it openly and freely, but I am a sexual wellness coach. So it's easy for me. I was talking with my goddaughter and I said, have you started your menstruation? And she got all sick. And she was upset and she turned to her mother and she said, she's made me lose my appetite. And I'm thinking to myself, how is your natural body a place of repulsion? What have you been taught? And see, here's the thing. When we make our young ladies ashamed of their bodies, when somebody that has predatory energy, and yes, R. Kelly has predatory energy, who has predatory energy pounces upon them and gets in that mind and has them trapped in the closet, who are we fussing at? Who are we yelling at? We're not saying anything about how we're training up our daughters, and now our sons aren't even safe. My mother is from a reservation, and she told me how the United States military would come on to that reservation and take young girls and do whatever they wanted to them. And there was no law and there was no help. And she began to tell me how it taught the men in her family that you didn't have to ask a woman for anything. You could just take it. So we have set up a culture in this nation that violation is okay. And if you have money, that violation is really okay. And I think it's a sad state of affairs. When I went on, what was that thing, Earlene? Backpage?
Backpage.
And I saw young, handsome brothers selling their body for money to men.
Mm-hmm.
And they were practicing homosexual, but they weren't homosexual. Some of those men, clairvoyantly, I saw had families and kids. They would say, like, I will get on top. You can't do nothing to me, but I'll do whatever you want for this much money. And I'm thinking to myself, so are we really in a space here in this country where so many people are coupled that we have to hide in closets, dress up like kids, dress up like animals? I mean, they have literal, Earlene, I saw today, they have conventions for people who like to dress up as animals and have sex. It's a huge thing. And you go to these conventions and you dressed up as a Care Bear and somebody else is dressed up as Smokey the Bear, and you don't ever see each other's face. You just have sex with the costume on. This is foolishness. Utter foolishness. One lady claims that, R. Kelly got you dressed up like little children and you got bows in your hair, but then he wants you to cover your body with a jogging suit so that men can't see your frame if he takes you out. I don't know. But here's the thing. If you're grown, so what? And if you can legally consent at 16 in the state of Georgia as the law state, then what? But then it turns around and tells you, oh, but not with a 50-year-old. This man 50 years old. I don't want to bump and grind with that. Do you, Early?
No, I don't like old men.
You don't like what?
I don't like old men. Not even if they wealthy. I don't like them. No.
It's like I told y'all. Once you have the grays downstairs, stop it. You know what I'm saying? Stop it. So in Georgia, is 16, but there is no close in age exception. So you end up with a felony if the perpetrator is less than 19 years of age, but is no more than 4 years older than the victim. So then you have statutory rape. So it's very confusing because if you are 16, you can consent, but apparently only with someone that's up to 18. So if it's true that he has a 17-year-old girl, at 50, he's committing a crime. And so this is where we're at. Today, the district attorney said he would not be bringing charges against Robert Kelly. He's simply investigating into the file that was given to him by R. Kelly's housing authority security people. So, R. Kelly was furious about that, telling them basically to mind their business. Here's the thing. You can't come into these gated communities and all this other stuff and try to run these types of things. You got to get somewhere in the country and, have you one of them undercover off the grid houses. You can't be, and I won't lie. David Koresh did that when he came to Waco, Texas. Minding his business, saying that he was Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Folks was furious. I don't know if they were no more angry that he said he was Jesus or more angry that he was getting to have all of this sex with women. I don't really know. But they wanted the authorities. These people got burned down to the ground and killed, and everybody was happy. Very, very confusing. I was thinking to myself as I was watching it on television, well, what exactly did the man do? They kept saying things like alleged sex with, and that's the same thing that's happening with R. Kelly. They're saying he's the mastermind behind an abusive cult. He's the mastermind behind an abusive cult. Jocelyn Savage, this young lady who's put out several videos, she says she's there of her own free will, of her own choice. She wants her parents to hush. She was a college student. You know what I'm saying? She encountered him some kind of way, and she left school. Her parents didn't even know that she left school, but here's the thing. She's an adult. Adults in this country can walk away from their families. I had a family member that walked away from her children, and they reported her missing. They were concerned. She called the police department, and she said, I'm not interested in having a relationship with my family. The police department came to the house and said, we know her whereabouts. She is safe. She's not interested in having a relationship with you all. And that was the end of it. So when I watched this young lady's father, I actually can see how she ended up in this situation. This man is so attention-starved, it's ridiculous. He out there looking like an attorney, Early, you need to look at it when the show is over because it's utterly ridiculous. He was shushing the reporters. He was like, he didn't have his facts together. He was, let me spell my wife's name. Let me spell this young lady's name. Yes, that's so-and-so, so-and-so. I'll get to that later. When they kept asking him what kind of proof he had, he kept saying that'll come next week. Or that, this is just to let you all know who we are. This is just to let you all know about our daughter. All that's fine and dandy. But you can go in the United States, you can take anybody to court. So all you have to do is go to court, and if you have the address of where your daughter is, you can have her brought in for safety reasons, evaluated, and placed into your care. This is what Britney Spears' father did when he saw her falling apart and shaving her head bald. She was an adult. But he was like, the devil is a lie. My daughter is bonkers, and I need to get in front of this situation. She got a conservatory. She don't even get to spend all of her wealth without somebody paying attention to her. All her medications and everything else, she's still not able to do anything without it going through her father because she's not well. He didn't jump on TV and give a news report or anything else. He saw about his daughter. He didn't come and make a statement and say, that Brittany has this type of condition or anything. No, that family rallied together and saw about their daughter. Now, when her sister Jamie became pregnant at 16, Disney fired her because she wanted to keep her baby. Yet, this is a channel that has had an agent that has molested over 30 young boys, and on top of that has had several of their so-called celebrities with all types of mental issues and mental breakdowns. Makes you wonder what's going on with these young men. But you fired a young lady who willingly had sexual intercourse and became pregnant, and blacklisted her, to be exact. It was almost as if they said, if you're not out here having sex with these grown-ups in secret, how dare you have consensual sex with somebody your age? It was really appalling. This is not what we stand for, but you stand for all types of other things that you want to promote on your station. You stand for keeping someone on the payroll that molests boys. So it's really peculiar to me that we continue to act like these things are not happening on every street corner. If R. Kelly had married Taylor Swift when she was 16, baby. Listen, why do you think this young lady's parents have never said a word? Do you really think that there isn't some type of agreement in place which doesn't allow them to speak about it? That young lady passed away and they still won't speak about it. They did a movie about her. I didn't see it, but I heard that was nowhere in the movie even. So people actually think when you say, well, I just want to respect, my daughter. I just want to, come on. This stuff is way bigger than what we could even imagine. It's way bigger. And people act like, oh, Aaliyah's family. Listen, she was with Barry Hankerson, which was Gladys Knight's ex-husband. And they called him uncle, and he was trusted to care for her and this, that, and the other. And he put her with R. Kelly, and she was up and coming and being famous. And then he somehow secretly married her. And then it was quietly annulled, and she rose to, her own stardom and then tragically passed away. But even when she passed away, nothing was allowed to be spoken of. See, here's the thing. Touch my daughter. Touch my daughter. You couldn't buy me at all. I'm not signing anything. I'm signing my intake at the prison. Definitely signing that. Taking my picture. You see what I'm saying? But you're not going to, there's no amount of money you could pay me to defile my daughter. There's no amount of money that anyone could give me to steal her innocence. And from what I'm hearing through the grapevine, and I really hate to talk about the grapevine, but it's grown folks' business and lots of people are talking. Young women are saying that even for the young girls that he's been with, he's paid off the families. So my thing is, if a man can pay off your family after having sex with you, what does that say about your family? What does that teach a young woman about her worth? When a man can pay your mama for touching you and she takes it and takes you to the mall, what is that teaching our young women about their self-worth? Listen, when I had low self-esteem, I found myself in many situations. I really did. I can't blame anybody for those situations. I had a low self-worth. I didn't think very highly of myself. And men who were predators, they preyed upon me. Absolutely they did. But I don't stand here today and say those men did this to me. I willingly participated in my low self-worth. Some things are a blur, thank God, but I willingly participated in my low self-worth. And I got preyed upon. And nobody intervened from the government on my behalf. Nobody investigated anyone. I was laughed at and told, ooh, she got low self-esteem. Ooh, she got low self-worth, whatever, by the same women who helped cultivate that low self-worth. Because it's perpetual in a lot of families. You know that your uncle is a pedophile, people. You know it. You know that your brother is a pedophile. You know that your aunt is a pedophile. And you sit right around and you protect and you block and you say things like, what happens in this family is family business. You better not tell my business when you leave the house. You're teaching your children that to be preyed upon is okay. That's what you're teaching us. I didn't talk for years about my molestation because I didn't know who I was going to tell. Who was I going to tell? That's why you have these women coming forward and they're like 70 and 80 years old talking about stuff that happened to them when they were 13 and 14 years old. Because who can you tell when you're watching everyone sit and love on the predator? Have funerals for the predator and talk about what a great man he was. What a wonderful friend he was. And you sitting there going like, this booger hurt me all of my days. I'm so confused. Who can you tell? You get to adopt children in this country. You get to do all types of things when you are a sex offender. Oh, but you can't live by a school though. We don't want you to live in a school, but the government actually pays money to people who will rent their homes to sex offenders. Do you all know that? You can rent your home. That's why there's so many of them some of them are on entire streets in Florida because people are getting that money. So you're not outraged about sexual impropriety. You're outraged, number one, that you're not participating in it. Or number two, that you're not benefiting from it. That's the only thing that I've seen through everything that I've researched. Sex trafficking is profitable. It's a multi-million, billion-dollar probably industry. It's an industry. There was a young lady when I was growing up. She made pornography. Her name was Tracy Lord. They found out that young girl was only 14 years old in those movies. 14 years old, handling her business, making millions. Who taught a 14-year-old to do that? That's why some of our laws say that it's okay to start having sex at puberty. Puberty. Well, what is the age? I mean, Earlene, do you remember when you, I hate to ask her this because, I just don't know what she's going to say. She probably going to say never, but do you know the day when you saw a little boy and got a little overwhelmed for him, a little bit like, oh, Lord, like a little heated? How old were you?
Truthfully, 5.
5?
Yeah.
Yes, that's that goddess energy.
I mean, it might have been 4. I used to fantasize about New Edition Ralph Tresvant. I swear. Had dreams.
Ooh.
Sexual dreams. I did.
I did too. I thought he was so handsome, but I was like 11.
That was very unusual shit, but it happened. Sorry about it.
So here's the thing, my pastor used to say that everything he learned it from a dirty little girl. Here's the thing, we clearly mature faster than boys sexually. I know that as young ladies we do. I won't even deny it. We do. And we like boys and we teach them certain things and we do certain things with them, a little too soon, a little too early because we're always nesting and trying to take a husband. I watched these two little kids on TV, and it was sad because the little boy was clearly homosexual, and the little girl was saying how they was getting married and all these things that she wanted, and he was enjoying planning that wedding, but she didn't realize she was actually with the wedding planner and not her husband. He was like, "Oh yes, honey, you can have this and that," and she didn't recognize it because she had already claimed him as her husband. So we start nesting really early as young ladies, and sometimes we can even coerce young boys into sexual acts before they're ready. And that's something else we need to talk about. 1 second, because they say, well, yeah, I was told I had a caller, but I couldn't see him on the board. So, caller, I'm sorry, you can call back in. I did not see you on the board. And so I apologize for that. But, Earlene, did you see a caller?
I don't. Now I look, it says a caller was at.
It says a caller, but I didn't see them come up on the board at all.
I didn't see them.
Yeah, I didn't see him. So I apologize for that, caller. You can call back in if you want to. So, I'm just really fired up about it because it's really sad how our country does not protect the weakest victims, the most impressionable victims. How is somebody in a nursing home positive for gonorrhea? How is a child in a mental institution pregnant? These are the things that have gone on historically in our country. People abusing the weakest members. And that is not cool. R. Kelly can sleep with all of the adults that he wants to sleep with because that's within his legal right. But what does it say if your adult child is the one that's sleeping with him? Where did we miss the mark? Where did things fall apart? I know when I left my mother's house, I definitely did not leave with a self-worth. I found my self-worth through my struggles. So I don't feel bad for these women because I used to be them. And I understand that when it hurts bad enough, you'll stop. When it hurts bad enough. It doesn't matter, America, how many guns you try to get blazing, how many people you try to burn up, how much Kool-Aid is stirred. This is never going to go away until we actually find our moral compass as individuals. Trying to make people have morality is foolish because it varies from person to person. It varies from person to person. What I deem right, another person may deem wrong for them. But if you hold to your own values, nobody can tell you, oh, what R. Kelly's doing is wrong. What R. Kelly is doing is right. If you hold to your own values, there 12 people saw the video. This man's legal team even accused his own brother of possibly being in the video with the urinating on the child. But you never saw the child come forward or her family in the video. They had already been taken care of financially, I believe. So what does that say about us? Yet we try to turn around and say that the oldest profession in the world is illegal. Sweetie, it's alive and kicking all over America. When women and men alike are selling their bodies to the highest and sometimes even the lowest bidder. I really don't know what to say about it. I think we're about to see even more increased sexual deviance. I mean, when the man making sandwiches, come on, Jared. Come on now. All of this child pornography, all of these things, they tell you can't take pictures of your own baby anymore in the tub or naked and all that stuff. Yet you got all of these people with child pornography getting pleading to lesser charges. Paul Rubin, who was Pee Wee Herman, his career was ruined. But in 2002, they found a whole bunch of child pornography, and he just pled to a lesser charge. Celebrities were rallying around him after he was caught, gratifying himself in an adult theater, and his career was ruined. The next thing you knew, celebrities was rallying around him. It was like, you know what? We just don't want you to get caught no more, okay? Like, you getting caught exposes all of us. So we had to teach you a lesson. Don't get caught no more. Stay in the house with this stuff. I remember growing up in New York when there was pornography and XXX films. I mean, you could just walk in Manhattan and they was everywhere. I grew up with this. They had those theaters where, men could go in there and do all types of inappropriate stuff, where they played pornographic movies all day long. And now, now you can just put your own porn on the internet and let people watch you. So you called for legislation to have these things taken away. There was a big movement for it, and now it's just come back in more secretive, hidden ways. And I don't think that anything, Earlene, I don't think that anything is going to come out of this situation with R. Kelly. What about you?
I don't think anything will come out of it because he's not doing anything illegal.
Allegedly. Not. You know what I'm saying?
Allegedly. I mean, are there any underage females locked in there?
Well, here's the thing. One of the young ladies was allegedly 17. That's the legal age of consent, but not with a 50-year-old. So, anything, it's the legal age of consent in 16 in Georgia, but a 16-year-old can't have sex with a 50-year-old. So she would have to be 18 to consent with him. So what they would have to prove is that he was having sex with her when she was 17. And they would have to prove that. If she says no and he says no, no proof. So, I think that there's so many things that we could be paying attention to in this nation other than somebody else's sex life. Honestly, people get so fired up about these celebrities' sex life. And as Earlene said on a previous show, it's the same sex you having. You ain't missing nothing. It's nothing important going on. It's nothing fancy going on. And as a matter of fact, they probably having less sex than you because they're too busy trying to stay relevant and popular. And that's the sad part. And so this week, I'm a bit irritated. I'm a bit agitated because this situation getting too much attention. This is a grown man with grown women. Why aren't you dealing with the man who's molesting all the little boys on your street? Who's molesting his daughter on your street? Who's molesting his son on your street? Why aren't you dealing with the woman who's having sex with her students in the 5th grade, in the 6th grade? You say that it's illegal for an adult correctional officer to have sex with a prisoner. It's called sexual abuse. Though that's been going on for years. A woman in Georgia was just arrested for having sex and a baby with a male prisoner because, they say they're a prisoner and they can't consent. These people having sex with correctional officers on purpose to set them up for these types of offenses. But what does it say about a woman who throws her whole life away to lay down with a man in jail? Who she's supposed to be there to allegedly protect as a correctional officer. Where do we learn these types of behaviors? What is going on in our culture when we can only find sex in the weak or the downtrodden or the innocent? What's going on with us culturally as a nation? And that's the questions that really aren't being asked. You want to focus on one person. Let's focus on R. Kelly, a grown man with grown women. But it was perfectly okay for him to pee on a little girl. It makes me sick. This country sends mixed signals. It has a very warped identity on what is appropriate. and what is inappropriate and what money can buy. Apparently, money can buy anything and everything. Once again, I'm being told I have a caller. I can't see it. Caller, if you're there.
Good evening. This is Pearl, host of A Kinky Conversation that's coming on right after this show, actually. But I live here in Memphis, and R. Kelly will be here for the umpteenth time next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And all I have to say is, fuck R. Kelly. I have paid good money to see him a few times, and every time he performs to tracks. No other celebrity, entertainer of his status and caliber does that. That's cheap. That's being a pimp. That's cheating the fans, him and his promoters. They are greedy. I have paid good money. They charge good money for those tickets.
Well,
and
he can't
perform with a live band.
He gotta pay for his sex. He can't pay a band. He paying women. He can't pay a band.
Yes, he can.
Not if he got to pay his victims.
It's enough money. Well, then he should stop touring then. He should stop touring. But he charges too much. Nobody does that. Mary J. New Edition, Jill Scott, Anthony Hamilton, Charlie Wilson, Fantasia. Did I say Mary J.? All the top acts that are touring ongoing, whether it's ongoing or not, none of them. Keith Sweat, I do a lot of concerts. Nobody performs to tracks but R. Kelly. So I'm not spending any more money on his shows.
What's the normal price of his tickets?
Those tickets they're gonna start up towards around $100 and go up. Wow.
And how big is your arena in Memphis?
That arena, the FedEx Forum, seats. I think it seats 22,000.
Oh wow!
And he sells out every time he comes. And then sometimes he's at the Landers Center down in South Haven, that's just across the state line in Mississippi. It's a full size arena, but it's smaller. But yeah, he sells out every time he comes. But he probably won't sell out this time because they were talking about it on Tom Joyner. Some of the show dates have been canceled, but they were saying that it was nothing to do with the allegations. It was schedule conflicts and
of course it has
like
everything to do with the allegations because he doesn't want to face his protesters and things like that. I thank you so much, caller, for calling in. That's deep. So R. Kelly getting paid. So the rumor that he's broke, if you selling $100 tickets out of 22,000, that's some change going on. So no wonder folks is jumping in that basement. Wow.
Well, if he's not broke, if he is broke, the promoter's not broken. So he's still wrong, and I'll hang up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Wow. So that's it. You heard it on Grown Folks Business. I don't go to concerts. I don't like that many crowds. But this is Grown Folks Business.
I like her. Mm-hmm.
She told the T, didn't she? I'm like, wow. I don't know what he sings. I don't listen to it. So we'll see you live next week on Grown Folks Business on InnerLightRadio.com.
I know you're used to letdowns and heartbreaks, lost in silhouettes of your heartaches. I can show you better, babe. I can show you better, babe. I know you're used to letdowns and heartbreaks, lost in silhouettes of your heartaches. I can show you